Hi, welcome back. We have made it to month 10. Can you believe it? So we are 10 months in, really 10 blocks in because I'm not recording this once per month. So we're working on block number 10. This is from our 2026 Mosaics and More Block of the Month Club, Block of the Month program. If you've been following along and if you're a member, then you know that you can access the written pattern as well as the video in the Learning Center, and you can get access to that from my website. If you're not a member, no worries, you can still join. And once you join at any point throughout the year, you will get access to all of the previous files. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we're working on, again, block number 10. And as it works out, it's called Mosaic number 10. Traditionally the mosaic blocks are made up of half square triangles. We are going to make this block entirely of flying geese, so that's going to allow us to do it just a little bit quicker, and it's also going to allow us the opportunity to continue practicing our skills in terms of making flying geese. For this block, there are 8 flying geese units. We're going to make them all, let me make sure I'm telling the truth here. Yes, we're going to make them all one at a time. There have been some other videos where we've made them 4 at a time, but this one we're going to make them 1 at a time. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to pan over to the material so you can see what we're using. And if you want to make this block along with us, again, you can join the Block of the Month Club and you will get the written pattern, which has all of the cutting instructions. So let's go ahead and get started and see what fabric we will be using today. I do want to make sure I mention that this fabric has been provided courtesy of Art Gallery Fabric, so I am forever grateful for them taking a chance and working with me on this project. And what we will be using today are 3 colors, and so let me show you what they are. Okay, so for our fabric, we have 2 different sizes of whites. We have a rectangular piece here, and there are 6 pieces there. We have 4 squares. Then we have our marmalade color. We have 8 squares. We have wisteria. We have 4 squares and 2 rectangles. Now, with this material, we're going to make this block, which is our mosaic number 10. So hopefully you can see that block. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to follow the instructions as they are written, and we'll be able to do this hopefully fairly quickly. So step 1, we're going to be making what we're calling Flying Geese W. And for Flying Geese W, we're going to need the following pieces of material. We're going to need 1 piece of our wisteria rectangle, and then we're going to need 1 piece of our our C square, and that is the marmalade. And we're going to need 1 square that is our wisteria. So this is again the purple color. And okay, so no, we're not using the purple rectangle. We're using the white rectangle, which is B2. Okay, yeah, so I just read that wrong. So we have our 2 squares, which is F1 and C, and then we have our rectangle, which is B2. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to, on the backs of these 2 squares, we're going to draw a line from corner to corner on both. So let me grab my pencil and a ruler. I'm using the mic now, so hopefully that audio is better. So again, we're going to just draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on both pieces of material here, both of our squares. Okay, So then the next thing we want to do is we want to take one of these squares and we're going to place it in the corner of our rectangle. So let's see if I can get this lined up pretty well. Okay. And I'm going to pin it so that it doesn't move on me. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to try to zoom in as much as possible. So we're going to sew a line along this line that we've drawn on. We're going to sew just on the opposite side. So if you can see the way in which I have this rectangle oriented, we're going to sew not on the line, but just on the other side of it. So it will give us a little bit more wiggle room as we do the stitch and flip. Okay, so let's take this to the sewing machine. So we're going to, again, sew just on the other side of this line that we've drawn on. Okay, so hopefully you can see I'm just testing this a little. So I'm flipping this up to make sure that this, which is our sky here, that it covers the entirety of this rectangle. And it covers it pretty good. So I'm now going to trim off the excess of this piece here. Okay, so I'm going to just line up my ruler. I'm going to line this ruler on the 1/4 inch line here, and I'm going to trim this off, and it's a little bit tight. Okay, great. Okay, so now I have 2 triangles that I can use later for a half square triangle or anything else but scrap pieces that I'm going to set aside. And so now I'm just flipping up this corner here of the flying geese unit. And now I'm going to take the other piece and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to just line up our marmalade rectangle in the other corner. And I think you can see that pretty good. I'm going to, again, pin this. So you can see here, we're going to do the exact same thing. Rather than sew on this line, we're going to sew just 1 stitch beyond it. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll do that stitch and flip. Okay, so let me just clip off my leader piece here and take my pins out. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to just flip this up a bit to make sure it's covering, and it's covering pretty well. So I'm going to now trim this. So again, lining my ruler up on the 1/4 inch mark and just trimming away this excess material. It's a little tight with it being so close to the sewing machine. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to flip this up and I'm going to press my seams. If you're following along in the pattern, so again, that's flying geese W. We need to have 2 of these. Flying geese W. There are 4 of them. So we're going to repeat that process 3 more times. Okay, and then in the other corner we would have our marmalade. Okay, so for these 3, I am going to Right now, I'm going to draw the diagonal line on all of the squares, and then I'm going to chain piece to put them all together at one time. So let's just set them aside, set the white piece aside while I draw the line. Okay, so we're going to do the very same thing that we did for the first Flying Geese W. So again, we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew not on the line that we've drawn, but just a hair above it. And I'm going to do that for all three at the same time. So that will be a bit of chain piecing. Okay, so again, for each of them, I'm just going to fold up the wisteria square to make sure I have good coverage. Now the instructions will tell you to press between each of these steps, which isn't a good practice, but for the purpose and the length of the video, I'm just finger pressing. But pressing with a hot iron is preferred. So I'm going to just trim off these pieces here as we did before and press this up again. And I'll set that aside and repeat the same process for the other two Flying Geese W units. Okay, so we're going to sew just on the other side of the line that we've drawn, and then we will have our first set of flying geese completed. Okay, so our blocks have been pressed. They are flat, and we're going to just set them aside, and we have 4 more flying geese units to make for this Mosaic number 10, which is the 10th block of our block of the month program. So following along in the instructions, we are now going to make Flying Geese X. And to make Flying Geese X, we're going to need 2 squares of B1, which is our snow, our background material, our background fabric. And then we're going to need 1 F2 rectangle, which is our wisteria. And so again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our smaller squares and we're going to draw a line corner to corner. There are 2 Flying Geese X in this block, so I'm going to just get them prepped and we're going to sew them all at once. So let me take the second set of squares here. This is square number or letter B1. So we're setting this aside. This is our Flying Geese X. And then we also have 2 Flying Geese Y units. And so those units will take 2 of the marmalade squares and 1 of the snow rectangles. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to draw my guidelines on here. So just corner to corner. So there are 2 of these, and so that means there are going to be 4 of these small marmalade squares. So let's see. Okay, so we're going to do that same pinning activity. The pinning is not absolutely necessary, but I think it's useful for beginners and really anyone else, especially if you're going to be chain piecing as I'm going to do now, so you can get your pieces in place and then you can feel comfortable and confident with moving them to your sewing machine because you know they have been secured and they're not going to move. Okay, so we're going to first start with our flying geese W, and again, we're going to just sew just a hair, in my case here, a hair to the right of the drawn on line. Okay, so I have flipped the material, I pressed it, and so now I'm just gonna flip it back here and trim off the excess material using the 1/4 inch marking on my ruler as the guide. Okay, so now we're going to just line up and sew on the remaining corners or the remaining sky in our flying geese. Okay, so we have all of our flying geese units created, and so now we're going to lay out our next step. So our next step is to create the center of the block, and so to create the center of the block, we're going to need our flying geese X and flying geese Y unit. So here we go. So I'm going to sew these together in 2 pairs, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to just take these 2 here and I'm going to flip them over, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam along this line here, and I will do the same here. So I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch along this path here, and then I'll come back and sew them together in the center, and then we'll have what our pattern is calling column C. Okay, so we can see all of our points are intact. So I'm now just going to take these 2 halves and I'm going to press them so that the seams are flat, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to sew the 2 halves together. So then just flipping these 2, this is my flying geese W, I believe, the W together, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam there, and that will complete what we're calling column C. Okay, that's much better. So now we have our column C. I'm going to press that middle seam flat. I am pressing my seams open. Okay, so we have our column L. So next we're going to do our, okay, so we are rounding up or rounding out to finish base or whatever, however you say that. I clearly am not a baseball person. So the next thing we're going to do is to create column L and column R. So that's our left and right columns. And so I have the block laid out. So what we're going to do is just take our flying geese and we're going to flip them over, and then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch along this seam here, and we'll do that on both the left and right columns. Okay, now this is our mosaic block number 10. Mosaic 10, block 10 of our Mosaics and More block of the month club. Okay, very good. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed block number 10. And as you can see, none of us are immune to having to use our seam ripper. So I guess as you're making your block, hopefully you can take a moment to slow down and pay attention to what you're pinning so you don't end up ripping seams as I've done today. Next month is block number 11. That is called Whirlpool. So look out for that, and I will see you then. Have a great day. Bye.